as you know, if you've been a part of this series at all, then basically what Paul has been talking about to this point in 1 Corinthians is how to live a Spirit-led life. How do we begin to live out the kind of lives that God wants us to live, that is led by Him, where He begins to work in our lives and through our lives for the spreading and the purposes of the gospel and of His kingdom. And very much like Jesus prayed, "Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done," Paul is trying to write to the Corinthians, ergo you and I, about how important this is and some of the things that get in the way of that. So we get to 1 Corinthians 10. So before we read the passage, I was thinking about this talk and started to think about the Christian life and looked at my own life history, and I feel like this is something that everyone can connect with, that generally there's a moment in a Christian's life where they ask themselves a few questions. Maybe a few of these questions will resonate with you. The first thing is, what now? Right? I'm a Christian, and I said the words, and I did what they said to do, and I'm saved from hell. What now? What happens next? Maybe you've never asked that. Maybe you're going to ask that in the future. Maybe I'm helping you ask it right now. But the question is, what now? And really, what I think is, I got an email, or I got some communications with one of my kids, and she's wrestling with her religion and trying to figure out where she stands. Where is she? Does she really embrace the Christian things? And she's really kind of looking and trying to discover what it is that she's going to actually believe. And I think what's interesting about that typical pathway when people do that is the things that are attractive about other religions are that they're so disciplined, I think. It feels very different than like the Christian worldview. Because if you were to look at, from a discipline standpoint, if you were to look at all the religions, you might think that the Christian religion is like the least disciplined one. Like you think about the Buddhists, like you think of a Buddhist monk, right? Buddhist monk is like, that's some serious commitment to what they're doing, right? They're like locked in, right? The Buddhism thing. You think about like Mormon, and they go away to be taught for 2 years on how to be a missionary, and they go out to the point that we make fun of them, that when they come to our doors because we've expected, they have branded themselves as missionaries. That's how they branded themselves. Like, when you think of a Mormon, you think of those two people on a bike that be rolling around in your neighborhood. How interesting is that, though? But the Christian doesn't have that kind of branding, right? When you think about the Muslim, they pray 5 times a day, right? They're locked in. They have these disciplines. So when you think about the Christian life, you think about maybe church on Sunday morning, but then that's it. And I think that one of the reasons that other religions have an allure to the Christian who's grown up in church a lot is because they seem to be much more serious about theirs. They seem to be really bought in, like they're giving away things to do those religions, and there's something I think intrinsically maybe attractive about that. Makes you say, man, the Christian thing, like, is it for real? Is it a real thing, right? Like, how does that happen? And so this question about what now really is a throwback to what Paul was talking about in 1 Corinthians 3. We talked about it earlier when he said that I've come and I've really just been giving you guys milk, but I want to give you something more meaty. And I think the problem is that the church and the Christians typically are on this milk diet. Right? And we forget, and we don't realize that there's this really great depth and this great level of involvedness in the Christian life. Instead, we kind of look at the gospel. When we mention the gospel, we mention the part of the gospel that's milky. The milky gospel, the part that's easy to grasp, the part that's easy to swallow. And I get that. We're in churches and we got large groups of people, and the people are all over the place, and so you kind of teach to the lowest level, right? You can imagine how you could arrive to a place where you are always getting watered down, shallow things for your entire life, maybe. Till you reach somebody, they're like, man, they are an atheist, and they know everything about that. And I just know a little bit of something. And it starts to feel like maybe this Christianity thing isn't for real. So the question is, when you say, now what, is, okay, once you become a Christian, what happens next? What's supposed to happen next? How do we deal with that, right? So the question of what now, what, or what now? Another question you might have is this it? Similar to what now, but is this all there is? I just come to church, I just do a few things, I'm supposed to read my Bible, I may or may not do that, you know. I'm supposed to pray every day, I may or may not do that. That's the kind of feel of the Christian church community. We may or may not do these spiritual practices, you know. It's up to us, we can choose it, so we don't oftentimes, right? Is this it? Is this all I'm supposed to do? Just say a few words, maybe come to church every once in a while, do a little bit of this and that? Is this it? Is this all there is to it? Great questions. The last thing that we might ask is and this one I think most of us do ask is, did it work? Did it work? In other words, am I really saved? How changed am I? Right? Okay, they said that I was going to be transformed. They gave me this thing and all. But I still am struggling with some of the things that I struggle with. I still think some of the things that I think. And what am I supposed to do with that? Maybe it didn't work for me. Maybe I got to do it again. Maybe I wasn't for real. Maybe I just got caught up in the moment. I don't know if anybody in the room has ever asked yourself the question, did it work? Right? You say, I'm a pretty bad Christian, I guess, because I don't have these practices, and I don't do these things, and I don't want to, if I'm honest. I don't want to. And in your the privacy of your own brain and of your own mind, you begin to think, I'm supposed to be a Christian, I'm supposed to love God, and yet I really don't like to pray. I really don't like to fast. I really don't like to come to church. I don't like to deal with other people. And I'm supposed to like those things, right? Isn't that what a Christian is? Maybe it didn't work. Maybe I'm not as changed as I thought. As a matter of fact, I seem to really like those things that I used to like. How changed am I? All right? These are really interesting questions that I believe happen in our minds, in our private spaces, while we're driving in the car, while we're in the shower. These are the things that happen when there's no show to put on for someone else. Because we know how to work the show. I can say the things that he say. John 3:16, yeah, it's awesome. Awesome is like the Jesus vernacular. The Christian vernacular is awesome going to be in there somewhere. Okay, but it's in there, right? So we know how to do that, but how do we? This is where it really matters. And so when Paul is talking about leading a spirit-led life, it's got to go beyond the show. It's got to go beyond adapting to the Christian culture. But it's got to go deeper into the sense that I'm actually going to embrace these concepts and live in it. It's got to first get there. And then after it gets there, we got to wrestle with the fact that it's a wrestle when we get there. We actually acknowledge that, right? And so Paul, I believe, is going to help us deal with these types of questions with the passage that we're going to look at today. So if we look at just a quick review from last week, because it needs to tie in. Last week we talked about leading the life the Lord has assigned you as good stewards of your destiny. And we said last week that there are things that you feel like you deserve that sometimes you're not going to get in the name of leading the life that God asked you to lead. And that's okay, that you ought to be able to give that up. Last week we talked about you should run as though you are actually trying to accomplish something. You remember that? We're going to hit that verse again today. He says, run like you're actually trying to get the reward. Don't just be out here. He says, don't just fight as though you're fighting somebody, not just beating in the air. Anybody see one of those YouTube fights? I know, you don't want to raise your hand. Because you're like, oh, let's skip that. But I'll be watching them. So when they come in and get these little street fights that they have on the video, and they just be like, you ever see the bad fighter? The bad fighters just, they ain't hit nothing. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Don't act like you don't know. You just miss it. Just in the air. That's not even fight. They just fighting the air. What if that? Paul is saying, hey Christian, why don't you fight like you're actually trying to hit something? Why don't you run as though you're actually trying to go somewhere and to get there instead of going through the motions, right? And that's what you told us last week. He says, why don't you do that? He says, I discipline my body. And I have to, sometimes I say no to the things that I have a right to do. And I say no to the things that I have a right to have in order so that I can live the life that God asked me to live. Right? As we hit last week. It's important that we understand that. Now, we're going to reread some of last week. In fact, I know I told you 1 Corinthians 10, but we're actually going to start in 9:24, because it all ties in. It all ties in. In fact, I'm a little frustrated that they can put chapter 10 as a separation here, because it's one big thought, and I think we miss it, and we'll take the passage out of context because it's the beginning of chapter 10, when it really is a continuation of chapter 9, starting with verse 24. So let's go ahead and read that, and then we'll pray, and I'll fire through this thing. So walk with me. 1 Corinthians 9, chapter 9, verse 24 reads this way. It says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize?" This is what we're just talking about. Run in such a way that you may obtain it. Don't just be running. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things, or self-controlled in all things. Now, they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into submission, lest when I am preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. Now some of your passages, when you get to 10, it says moreover. Moreover is kind of like saying, besides. It's like saying, besides. Or like someone even say for. Some of your Bibles may have for, and some of you, they just took the word completely out. But it says for. In other words, what he's about to do is expound on this concept of running toward a prize and being disqualified. So listen to this chapter 10 in light of what he just said in 9:24-27. I'm going to say besides. Besides, brethren, I do not want you to be unaware that all of our fathers were under the cloud. All passed through the sea. All were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food. And all drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ. But with most of them, God was not well pleased, for their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things as they also lusted. And do not become idolaters, as were some of them, as it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and they rose up to play. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, or some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, as some of them also complained, and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages would come. Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed lest he fall. No temptation has overtaken you except such as common to man, but God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. But with the temptation will also make the way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. Jump to verse 31. Therefore, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to the Jews or to the Greeks or to the church of God, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of many, that they may be saved. Imitate me, just as I also imitate Christ. Bow your heads with me, and then we'll jump in. God, we open our hearts and our minds to you in this moment. God, we desire to be an instrument for your message, and your messaging and your words. Let it be true that what is said is ordained by you, and that it would fall on fertile ground in the hearts of these your hearers, that somehow it would take root and lives would be changed to look more like you tomorrow than it looks today. Thank you for who you are and what you've done for us and the opportunity to gather together. Bless this time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. So moreover, so now remember, 9:24-27, he's like, run like you're trying to go somewhere, fight like you're trying to knock somebody out. Write that down. Fight like you're trying to knock somebody out. Like, be for real. And then he talks about this discipline. That's what we talked about last week. I discipline my body. Then he says, besides, and then he says, there are a bunch of people who are just like us who made a lot of really, really bad mistakes. So the first thing I want you to know is that it's not automatic. It's not automatic. It's not automatic. So when you become a Christian, it's not automatic that you suddenly are like Christ. That seems like stuff that you like, yeah, everybody's like, well, yeah, that's duh. Except, maybe we don't think that. Maybe we don't realize that. It's not automatic. That there are some things that we are going to have to intentionally pursue. There's a certain level of intentionality about our lives that's going to matter. And there are people who've been in the situation we've been in before, and they made really, really big mistakes. So he begins to say, hey, don't take this for granted. He says, I discipline my body so that I won't be qualified, because here's a whole history of people who were disqualified. Here's a whole history of people who did things that didn't get to the destiny that God had for them. Right? He says, and he begins to use the Egyptian story in the Exodus. And he says, hey, if you know that story, you know that the purpose of them getting out of Egypt was to get where? Somebody shout it out. To the promised land. But verse 5 says, there's a whole bunch of them scattered in the wilderness. They didn't make it. They didn't get to their destination. They didn't get to their destiny. They didn't get to the place God had for them for some reasons that we'll talk about in just a minute. But what I want you to get here is, it's not automatic. They didn't walk out of Egypt into the promised land. Between Egypt and the promised land was a wilderness. A wilderness. Where wilderness experiences happen. Now let's take a look at the differences between, as he kind of lays this out, what's going to be true to the text, right? So what I want you to see is that he's basically making a parallel between the Christian experience and the Exodus experience. And so when he says that we are like them, like our fathers, that they were rescued from Egyptian slavery, just like we're rescued from the slavery of sin. It's a type of the gospel picture through the Exodus crowd. They were baptized in the Red Sea experience, and once they went through this water with the Red Sea experience, right? Everybody knows that. And what happened in the Red Sea experience? Not only did they get through there, but the Red Sea vanquished the Egyptians, completely destroyed their previous masters. So when we get baptized, nothing happens in the water, but this is a picture of what happens. You were once enslaved by sin, enslaved by Satan. And when you were baptized, it's the picture of the defeat of Satan in your life. He's no longer your master, much like the Egyptians wrapped up in the Red Sea. All right, spiritual food, manna from heaven, bread that came down from heaven. And then they take, in Corinthians, they do the Lord's Supper. We do the Lord's Supper. And then the Lord's Supper is the bread out of Jesus' body. It's the bread from heaven. So, and then we got the spiritual drink from water from the rock. And we have the Lord's Supper, where we take the Lord's Supper out of Jesus. Jesus' blood comes out of his body as well. And so he said, hey, God has already shown us a picture of what this looks like way back then. And he said, but those people had all of those things and they completely failed. They made some mistakes. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm always looking at the Exodus. I'm always looking at the people in Exodus. I'm always thinking, how in the world could they have a problem with God? They saw 10 plagues. Like, how many of y'all saw 10 plagues? Anybody around here saw no 10 plagues? They had 10 plagues. They had a Red Sea experience. They watched God do his thing. Like, not a story. Like, they watched it. Right? There was a cloud every day that they looked at that manifests God, showed them where to go. There's a pillar of fire every night. When I was growing up, I used to say, man, I feel like God, it would be much easier if you just showed yourself every day. Like you just like you in the sun, like you just a dude sitting on the sun, everybody could be like, that's God right there, right? It's like really visible. I'm like, man, if that was the case, then it feels like people would believe because they would have some really clear evidence. But here we see that Exodus, these cats in Exodus, they had clear evidence, cloud by day, fire by night. They had bread come from heaven every day. They ain't even complaining about the bread. Bread that comes from heaven every day. Water coming out of this rock. All these really awesome things, right? You think about all these things that you're seeing. And with all of that, they were like, It would have been better for us to stay in Egypt. It would have been better for us to stay in Egypt. Now, Paul uses them, and I'm like, if the people at that time had all that evidence and they were still having problems, still falling subject to their temptations, then Paul is like, look, this thing is not automatic. That we have less than that kind of, right? And it's going to be likely that we're not going to fall right in line. We're going to fall for these various types of temptations. The scripture says that despite these things, despite the fact that they had all these things, he says, and God was not pleased with them. Now, the Jews' deliverance is a picture of the gospel, but there's also this other picture with salvation and sanctification. This is really where Paul has been talking the whole time. It's the concept of sanctification. You want to know now what? This is the now what. Salvation is that you're delivered from sin, just like they're delivered out of Egypt. Salvation is the destruction of the enemy that was holding us. That's the sin in your life. That's the story. That's the before and your before and after. That's the thing that had a hold on you, that God rescues you from. Right? And then you're born into God's family. That's what happens at salvation. That's the milk part. Everybody likes that part. That's the what's in it for me part. Right? Everybody likes that. And really, we like to sit here. We sit here, we're milky on this. But the sanctification piece is that you're on a journey, you're on a journey of living a life for Christ. So that you begin to slowly look more and more like Him. That there is a destiny. That you're not just a nomadic person once you're saved, wondering where you happen to go. That God has a very clear pathway for you. Somewhere He wants you to go, something He has pre-thought that you will do. And that we're going to have wilderness experiences. And this is what we're talking about today. Wilderness experiences. When you think about being stuck in the wilderness, you don't think about the same thing if you're being stuck at, 5 Seasons Hotel. It's a little different. The wilderness is going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to have all of these things that make it a difficult thing to do. But I believe that this wilderness experience is a picture of our sanctification. And I think that Paul is saying, hey, as you move from salvation to the Spirit-led life, as you try to figure out what's next, as you become a Christian, you take yourself to the next level and try to do and live your life the way God asked you to live, is you're going to have these wilderness type experiences. These things that God's going to use to grow you. You're going to have these things. And you can't let these various types of temptations, which we'll talk about in a minute, get in the way of your growth. Now, with regard to the question about am I really saved? I'm going to hit this really quickly and I'm going to move on. In our normal lives, non-spiritual lives, when we have problems, everybody's had some problems. Whenever you have a really, really bad day, or a really set of bad days, or a bad month, sometimes a bad year, you never ever say, man, I'm having a bad day. I wonder if I was born. You ever ask that question? You ever ask that? Like, man, today sucked. I must not even be alive. Seems like a silly thing. Like, that's so ridiculous, right? You gotta say stuff like that, right? Anton, what are you talking about? But when we say that we're born again in Christ, alive in Christ, born again in Christ, and then we meet trials and temptations, and we allow those trials and temptations to ask us, were you actually born again? Why does the trial and temptation have anything to do with the fact that you're born again? You are born again. So the trial and the temptation has a different function, and the enemy gets to win when he gets you fixed on and thinking about whether or not you're actually saved or not. And because he's got you thinking about this instead of living the life that you're actually going. And that's what they did. In Ephesians, I keep saying Ephesians, in Exodus, they were always sitting there saying, it would be better for us to be in Egypt. God, He brought us out here to die in the desert. Right? They kept looking back. They kept looking back. One of the temptations was they kept looking back and they wouldn't look forward. And part of the sanctification process, part of your wilderness experience to move you from birth to destiny is that you're going to get trials and you'll get temptations. But it doesn't change the fact that Egypt died in the Red Sea. And that the enemy in your life is already defeated. Right? That you've already been saved and transformed. And so long as you're questioning who you are, you can't get where you're going. Right? So I want to free you, if you're a Christian and you're saved, I want to free you from this idea that because you're not nailing everything just right, stop asking the question, was I born? No, you were born. God did a thing. He did it. And it's going, you're in a wilderness and it's part of the process. Nobody asks if they questions their birth during devastating times. All right, so the journey will include temptations. It's not automatic. It's not, something that's going to happen easily. You got to work for it a little bit, which is why Paul says discipline. You're going to have to discipline yourself. You're going to have to pursue and follow the path of God. He's not going to take you there on your own. Now, the next thing is how we guard against temptations. How we guard against temptations. Now, Paul says that these stories are made to be an example for us. Now, what are the temptations that we have to guard? Now, again, I think it's interesting that Israel forgot God despite the cloud, fire, Red Sea, manna, water. I think that's a trip. I feel like if I had a little fire that was following me, that I was following throughout my life, then I wouldn't question it. But yet, that's what happened. So what are the things that we should look out for? We now know that we won't step out of Egypt into the promised land, but there's something in between our being saved and born and our destination, which is heaven, and the destiny God has for us. What is going to happen in this wilderness, and how do we not have the fate of the people who are in Exodus? The first thing that he says in verse 6, he says, or 7, he says, do not become idolaters as some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. In other words, do not worship the things that have nothing to do with why you are who you are in Christ. More than that, do not seek the fulfillment of your life in other things. That's really what idolatry is to find your fulfillment in something else. What's really interesting to me about this passage, because he's jumping back to Exodus. In fact, let's look at Exodus 32, 1 through 6. What we see is, he says, now when the people saw that Moses delayed from coming down, Okay. And the people gathered together to Aaron. They said to him, make us gods who will go before us. As for this Moses cat, this crazy Moses, the one that says, as for this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him. Where is he? Next. And Aaron said to them, listen to this. Break off your golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me. So all the people broke off the golden earrings. They did these things, and they made a graving tool, and he made a calf, and he said, this is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Now what's interesting to me is that they gave their gold to make this idol. They gave their gold to make this idol. And I want you to know that we give our best to things that we worship. We give our best to the things that we worship. So I ask you this question. Do you worship God or do you worship something else? What is it that you're giving your best to? You know what I mean by your best, right? They get your best energy. They get your best time. That's where you put your money. That's where you put your energy. What's getting that in your life? Because they didn't just grab some clay and make a clay god. They took their most precious things. And together, as a family, wives, sons, daughters, and everybody got in on that. They gave their best to something, and they began to worship that thing. And they called that their deliverer. There's two things there. One, that God said that you're going to give your best to the thing that you worship. So you got to ask yourself, what is it that you worship? Everybody worships something. You either worship yourself, there's a whole list. What is it that you give your best to? Because you give your best to the thing that you worship. The second thing is they try to determine the way God should be praised. They say, hey, we're going to do this the way we used to do this in Egypt. Because that's where they were getting this from. We used to do it this way in Egypt, so I'm gonna follow God the way I want to follow God. We don't need a fire, we don't need a cloud, we don't need this other stuff. We want to do it our way. And isn't that true that we get there? I don't like this church, I don't like that church. I don't like this style, I don't like that style. I wish we did this, I wish we did that. Okay. Aren't those the wrong questions to ask? Isn't it better to say, God, where do you want me? It's a different place, right? But we try to take and we try to make our interaction with God the way we want it as opposed to the way He wants it. So our temptation, that's a side note, just want to throw that in. The real thing I want you to get here is that we worship the things that we put our best into. And that becomes our idol. And he says that when you're in your temptation, when you're in your wilderness, you're tempted to find your fulfillment in something else. You're tempted because you're in a wilderness, because God has brought you to a place where He's going to shape and mold you that may not feel super duper comfortable, right? You're tempted to try to find fulfillment somewhere else. Maybe in the very thing that He rescued you from. How many of you don't have to raise your hand. How many of you still find that you struggle with the same sin that God delivered you from? You. Appreciate it. You still are struggling with the same sin that you were rescued from, not because it has a hold on you, because the enemy was defeated. It's not the thing, right? You have found a solace. And it's easy, the temptation is to go back to what you knew. Right? Some of us had relationships and you got an old girlfriend, maybe. I've never had this problem. But but you look back at, I've had girlfriends, but you don't know about. So you look back and you think, this relationship that was really toxic at the beginning, like, while you were in it, like, oh my gosh, I gotta get out of here. This girl, this guy is just ridiculous. I gotta go, man, wow, this relationship's done. Then you get later and you're alone or whatever, you look back at old Jack and Judy and you're like, hey, maybe it wasn't so bad back there, Jack. Kind of forget how bad it really was because you just want something better than what is right now. And it's so like that. Like God rescues us from something. He begins to work in our lives. He begins to do something sometimes that's uncomfortable in the wilderness. And we begin to think, man, it might be easier if I just go back to this old thing. I just want to leave this Christian thing because I'm getting enough out of that. I just want to go back and serve and worship this other thing. We're tempted to do that in our deal, but we got to be disciplined to stay on track. He says, don't worship other idols. Do not let your desires master you. He talks about sex. Sex was big in the Corinthian age, and sex is big now. Big problem. The temptations here is to do what you want. That's the one everybody knows. Temptations is to do what you want instead of what God wants. He says, look, your desires are not what drive the ship here. So don't get stuck in the sexual immorality. Now again, he's speaking very particularly to the Corinthians because that's one of their issues. But we can say that that's really anything that tempts us. It says, do not test God. God is a jealous God. I was just spent some time on this. I was like, what does it mean to test God? And the picture here is, can you imagine being married? I'm going to give you a picture. My beautiful wife would never do this to me. Hey, babe. But you imagine married couple, super flirtatious wife though, flirting with everybody in the bar. Just flirting. While the husband's right there. Can you imagine that? So many things are going wrong with that, right? Man, that's complete disrespect to him. She must not have good loyalty to him. She doesn't care very much about him. Da, 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 da. And it tests the guy to like want to get up and want to do something to somebody. Somebody's going to be a problem somewhere with that. God is a jealous God. And when he said do not test God, like, don't be this flirtatious wife. Who's committed to this relationship, but just is flirting around with all kinds of guys and things. Right? Is that the way some of us live? Like, I know sometimes, like, you like, I know I'm a Christian and all, but maybe I'll get some time over here to this, into that, into this. God is a jealous God, and when they tested God in that way, he did not like it. And there was problems. Talked about the serpent. We have to get into that another day. But when you test God as a jealous God, and when you begin to take what is His and give it to someone else, there's a problem. When you take what is His and gives it to us, so respect your relationship with God, they'll give what belongs to Him to other things. The last thing is, do not grumble and complain. And this one's the easy one to talk about, the hard one to actually deal with. While we need to be emotionally authentic with God and tell Him how we feel, we must also, within that, learn to trust God in every aspect of what we do. And so if He has us going through a wilderness experience, we have to learn to trust God with our circumstances, and even when they become uncomfortable and difficult. James 1 and 2 talks a little bit about this. James says, count it all joy. My brother, count it all joy when you fall into various trials. Why? Why would I count it all joy? That the testing of your faith produces patience. And do I want patience? Yes. Patience is good, because when it has its perfect work, you will become perfect and complete and lacking nothing. Therefore, my trial and my temptation is designed to make me better. And I can trust that. If anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of it of God, who gives to all liberally without reproach, and it will be given to him. So Paul is saying, listen, instead of complaining, you got a problem and you got stuff going on in your life, instead of complaining, ask for wisdom. First of all, you got to trust God that He's good. You got to trust that He's good and that He's doing good things, even when it doesn't look good. And then when you can't understand what's happening, you begin to say, God, I don't understand what's happening. I want you to work whatever you're working. Give me wisdom to work within this well. That's a different response than, I'm going to complain. I was better off without you, God, because I can do better without you. That's what they were saying. Count it all joy. Know that God is not finished with the story yet. There's something that you're going through that God's not finished yet. He's still writing it. There's more to it. God's not finished with your story. Trusting God and living in His way leads to contentment and joy in all things. The last thing he says is be encouraged because temptations are normal. He says in verse 13, no temptation has overtaken you except such as common to man, and God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond you can bear. That there's nothing new under the sun, that people have been tempted, you've been tempted and people have been tempted, the same thing you have been before. That this is normal. Right? Nothing to do. There's no temptation that's new. And then further, in Hebrews 4:15, we know that Jesus was tempted by all things. We do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but He Himself was tempted at all points and did not sin. So temptations are going to be there. Don't allow them to make you want to go backwards. Don't embrace the complaining. And recognize that it's part of the process. And God is faithful. He'll never leave your side. Though He allows the temptations, He will be there to help you defeat it. Psalms 23 says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, be cautious with me. Your rod and your staff comfort me and protect me. Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for good for those who love the Lord, who are called according to His purpose, who are called according to His destiny for their lives. All things work for the good of those who are called, if we're living within God's spiritual promptings in their life. Therefore, he says, flee from idolatry and other temptations. In verse 14. The last piece, and I'm almost done. Verse 31 through 11, he says, so he wraps up this whole thing. We've actually been talking about this one topic since chapter 6. And he's been saying, hey, there's a bunch of stuff that you think you can do and all this. He says, he wraps it all up. He says, whatever you do, whether you eat or you drink or whatever, do it all to the glory of God. So we were to bring it all up. He says, don't worry about how right or wrong it is. That's what we're talking about with the food in chapter 8. Don't worry about what you think you deserve. That's what we're talking about in chapter 9. He says, don't just go through the motions and live without intentionality. That's what he's talking about at the end of chapter 9. Don't fall for these temptations of worshiping other things and grumbling and testing God and so forth. But instead, stay focused on what it is God has asked you to do, and do that. And so whatever you do, do it so that God will get glory from it. Another way to say it, in my opinion, and you guys know I love this, is to love God with your heart, mind, soul, and give your best to God. Love God. And then after that, he says, give no offense to Jews, Greeks, or God's church. Which sounds a lot like love your neighbor as you love yourself. Paul wraps the whole thing up. He wraps everything he's been talking about and says, hey, just give your best to God. Love God fully with everything that you have. Just love him fully. And then learn to love your neighbor. And then the last verse that we're going to talk about is 11 and 1. To me, it was a great challenge. Paul ends the section with a clear sense of responsibility and challenge. He says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Now, imitate me is not Paul's arrogance. Some people might think that that's Paul being arrogant. Like, hey, you should do what I do. No, it said that Paul understood his role, and he knew that his life is the best way to living a proper life is the best way to show love to other people. In that one statement of imitate me, Paul accepts that he's got to be intentional. He accepts that he has a responsibility and he has to steward his role. Right? In that one phrase, we see that Paul is serious about what he's doing. Imitate me. Watch what I do and do it. My dad used to come in all the time. He said, just do what you see me do. That was a phrase in my house a lot. Do what you see me do. Right? And so the question I have for you is, can we say this? Can you say that? Right? Can you imagine being in your circle of friends and the people who are lost in your life, and you say to them, hey, I know this Christian thing is tough. I know you may not like it, but why don't you just follow what I do? Does that freak some of y'all? Because I think that that's a great way to test on some level how serious you are about leading a Christian life. Not just the gospel stuff, but actually leading a sanctified Christian life. Can you say, are you willing to say, man, do what you see me do? Mistakes and all, because if you're going to mistake and confess, right? Do what you see me do. He says, do what I'm doing, and then just as you imitate me as I imitate Christ. Here's what we know Christ did. Christ gave away his rights when he came down from heaven. Christ gave away what he deserved. He didn't deserve to die on the cross, but instead he chose to serve through dying on the cross. He survived the temptations of his own personal wilderness, like literally went to the wilderness and was tempted by the devil. But he also had a kind of wilderness from his life to his death that had all those temptations. He survived his wilderness. He went through the sanctification process. He disciplined his life so as to complete his role or his destiny, and he resisted temptation. And so we must do likewise. The challenge is, Paul says, lead a disciplined life. Run like you're trying to get somewhere. Fight like you're trying to knock somebody out. Discipline yourself. Know that you're in good company when you face trials, when you go through these things. Don't fall for the temptations in your wilderness experience. Don't worship the wrong things. Instead of saying don't, why don't I say stay focused on what God has asked you to do despite everything around you. Find comfort in that. Trust God in that. Be content in that. And God can work really great things in your life and the lives of people around you. Because he's good. And the things that he does for us and wants us to do is also good. Bow your heads. Father, I thank you for this passage and this verse.